So I guess we'll start with an intro, as we tend to do for most of these podcasts and anything else that we do. So, what's up, guys? This is E-House from Gun Gamers, and I am joined by several guests this evening, actually. First here, we have Steven. Say hi, Steve.
Hey guys.
Then we have Garrett. Say hi, Garrett.
What's up?
And then we have a couple of very special guests. We've got our buddy Connor here.
Howdy.
And we have our buddy Trenton.
Yo.
So, I mean, most of our viewers probably know who, Garrett, Steve, and I are to some extent. How about we start out with Connor? How about you introduce yourself a little bit?
Oh man. All right. Well, I was randomly assigned to the Gun Gamer squad back in forever ago, Caspian Gap,
2016, baby.
2016, man. And I guess I've just been kind of hanging out with them since, just going to all of them. I was a squad leader at one of them, team leader at some of them, just kind of filling in the gaps and hanging out with these dudes. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, you've been to pretty much every MilSim West that we've been to. Actually, you've
Yeah,
been to more.
Everything but Surge, yeah.
Yeah, you've been to all of them but Surge, and you actually went to Grozny Insurgency, and we missed Grozny Insurgency. So,
Yeah, that was the time.
and then Trenton, how about you introduce yourself?
Well, I actually met Gun Gamer Crew at the same time as Connor did. We were two randos in their squad. I've been the little NATO bitch that could ever since. I refuse to do anything other than NATO. So I fought against Gun Gamers back at Caspian Breakout, and I think this past one, the Insurgency, was my fifth MilSim West that I've been to.
Were you at Saratov?
No, I did buy my ticket. I was gonna run with the KSK guys.
Oh yeah, those guys are cool.
Due to unforeseen circumstances with my job, I ended up having to actually bail a week before the event. I'd bought my ticket and my entire KSK kit and everything, and I ended up having to not go and sell my entire German kit, which was a really, really disappointing day.
Oh,
Ooh,
man. That's sucky.
Yeah, that fucking blows.
It did, yeah. But now I've got everything back up and running, so hopefully I'll be doing a lot more just MilSim West.
Yeah. And you were NATO at Grozny not Grozny Insurgency, at Chechen Collapse, this last one.
Yes, me and Megan, we were both NATO.
Yep.
I think we're the only two that you know of, right?
Yeah, the only. What do you mean?
The only two that you know personally.
Oh no,
right?
there were other NATO there that we know personally. Like Hunter and some of the guys. Like actually the guys you died on that corner with.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about those guys.
Yeah, the ones who were kind enough to tell me I was on an anthill.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, actually, we're so the purpose of this podcast and kind of the subject is for the three of us. This was our first Insurgency game, and we obviously had a great time. Spoiler warning, and we wanted to kind of talk about it and do a little bit of an event review. We're trying to do these a little more regularly, but we also wanted to get the perspective of you see. Connor here, the whole Wolf Cola thing was his idea, so we got to get our glorious CEO on here. And then we've got Trenton here, and Trenton was actually NATO, and we thought it would be good to get the perspective of one of the NATO guys, because NATO had, I think, a little bit of a different experience at this game than a lot of other people.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting experience.
That's,
at least.
Yeah. So, I mean, the format of Insurgency, for anyone who's not familiar, what would you guys say is the best way to describe the Insurgency format? I mean, shit, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. It was just choose your own adventure, I think, is the way that I'd print it for the civilian faction. You could just do whatever you wanted, really.
There really is a lot of freedom of being able to choose your own destiny as far as a MilSim West Insurgency is concerned. Like if you choose Rust 4 and NATO, obviously you're still going to get the typical like very heavy military focus experience. You're still going to have the squad leader tree and everything like that.
Chain
with
of command.
Leaders, chain of command, that's what it is. But if you choose a civilian team, it kind of opens up a lot of possibilities to do like what we did, and Connor could go into some more detail with it. We had a company essentially, and we made up our own jobs at the company, and we made up our own like missions sort of at the company, but then we just inserted ourselves in the middle of what I would consider a high tension political war zone.
Yeah.
That eventually boils over.
But then Trenton obviously being at the at the NATO side, like with the military, factions, it's a little bit more like very regimented, right?
Yeah, one thing I personally like about the NATO side is that it's like supposed to be like immersions 100%. And one of the things I was excited about for this event was basically my understanding was I was going to be like handing out propaganda and like candy and anything else that I could carry that people would love and try and win hearts and minds, to like get as many people on my side as possible. That's what I went in thinking the event was going to be.
Well,
and it didn't necessarily turn out to be like that.
Yeah. Well, I was on NATO last year for Insurgency. And it really was that. I think a huge part of that was that in Insurgency, NATO's green zone was like inside the economic zone, which is the main city area. So we were just in such close proximity to the civilians. We were constantly going out and like shaking hands and spending the money and stuff. And we were constantly getting involved with civilian affairs. So I think that was a huge part of
and this year they didn't have the green zone, right?
All the way out in Dzalka. So
yeah, it was like we were like a mile and a half down the road.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to be doing presence patrols. But at least for me, the only 2 times I ended up in the city was during NATO's trial, and then the final, and then Sunday when we just decided to roll everybody.
Yeah. I do think NATO's trial was kind of hilarious. The fact that NATO got put on trial for war crimes, and it was such a kangaroo court. Like it was all bullshit. It was great.
The best part about that is none of the NATO troops knew what was happening. We were just told there was a political event happening and we need to pull security.
Oh, really?
We didn't realize that on trial for war crimes. I had no clue what was happening.
That's really goddamn
what
funny.
were all the NATO guys like outside after shit popped off? What happened there?
Well, okay, so I was pulling security. I was actually talking to a couple civilians that I know personally, and we were just chatting like nobody's business. And then all of a sudden, we turn around, and we hear gunshots going off and grenades going off inside the building, and then everybody's getting lit up, no matter where you are. And it's just, yeah, Megan got taken hostage.
Yeah, to add on to that, my perspective of everything, because I was on the roof pulling security for us at the mosque, and everything, like as soon as the gunfire started happening inside where the trial was being held, outside everyone was just panicking. NATO was finding cover for wherever they were. Civilians were just running in every which direction they wanted to go, just trying to get out of the way. The dude with the blank fire PKM, I think at one point he just kind of like laid down and he just started shooting wildly. Like it was absolute chaos when everything kicked off.
Just shooting wildly. That's really out of character for that guy with the blank fire PKM,
Well, I think he was firing wildly. Like I was like just peeking my head up and over. It seemed like he was pointing it in a different direction.
No, that's crazy. That never happened at that game.
No.
It was sweet though. But so I think kind of what I'm observing is that like the main theme seems to be that, like, yeah, there's like peace times at the game, and there's, you are playing as if there's some kind of a functional society, but shit can pop off at any second.
Oh, I think it was. I can't remember if it was late morning or early afternoon on Saturday. Not a whole lot has happened besides, us selling Wolf Cola to the various businesses throughout Grozny. But all of a sudden, like, gunfighting started happening, and a couple of people were like, "Hey, let's go support. We got to go support so and so." So we start heading up to start doing that, and before we knew it, we get like halfway across the upper end of the village up there, and we're like, "Wait a minute, who are we shooting at?" We had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, what happened with that? What I remember, I think it was about like 12 or 1. And I remember we were just sitting around, we were just like eating lunch and shit, and we just heard fighting going on in the upper city. And so I said, all right, I'm gonna go like hoof up this hill and kind of like peek over and see what's going on. But then like 4 or 5 of you followed me up, and we just got in contact, and we just pushed through. We had no idea who we were shooting at, but I shot a couple people who were on the opposite side shooting at us. So
Yeah, didn't that end up being civilian on civilian too?
it was, yeah.
Basically, yeah.
But I just saw I saw the police, and I saw I figured the police probably in the right here, so let's just go fight with the police.
Wolf Cola supports Grozny's finest.
Yeah.
Now what was interacting with the police like on your end, Trenton? Like, did you guys do much interacting with the police, or?
Somewhat here and there. I know NATO was trying to interact with them, but as far as like, if you ask the regular, like the NATO regular, every single one of us thought is like, these guys are just around to fuck us over, man. None of one of us trusted them up until towards the end on Sunday, like halfway through the assault on the city. Like the yellow band rushed for, and the police, the Grozny police said it's we're all on your side. They lit up all the regular Rust 4 in the mosque, and we didn't even have to take it. We just waltzed right in. Like, they took it for us.
Yeah, because I think I have my theories that might have been somewhat an admin move, because I think I think that there was a lot going down, because I know didn't a lot of NATO, like at least like a sizable bit of one of the NATO forces, like, left.
Yeah, so Saturday morning, they decided that we were going to try this whole flanking recon move on what we believe to be the Russian, like, COP. And it ended up leading us through a swamp for like 3 hours, where half of us ended up like knee deep in mud, if not more. I knew a couple dudes who fell. And that was really kind of a shitty thing. And we ended up waltzing on like a totally empty compound. And it's like, okay, now we just walk back, I guess. So after that, I heard a lot of NATO ended up kind of dropping. I think like 10 from my platoon ended up dropping.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I don't know about the rest of it. I didn't hear any other numbers aside from that, but I did hear there was a decent amount of NATO who dropped after that, just because, I mean, it was rough.
Yeah.
I spent the next like 4 hours without pants on because I had to let them.
Yeah. And another question I had is, so, and I don't know if this is accurate. I don't know if you know if this is accurate, but I heard that NATO had a harder time because I think NATO's original CO, like their original main cadre, did he like end up getting like being unable to make the event at the last minute?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, no, I might have heard totally wrong then.
No, I think the biggest thing was just the lack of, well, to be frank, doing anything. You know, aside from the swamp patrol that we did Saturday morning, from then until when the NATO trial went down, we just sat around doing nothing. Like, literally just taking turns watching a checkpoint.
Yeah. And if you ask me, like, that should have been, because we saw, like, no NATO. except for times when there were like firefights.
Yeah, so every NATO interaction we had was like overwhelmingly negative. Like we were in a pub and they shot that up. Every time we went up to the NATO checkpoint, we were turned away, and that may have been because I thought we had cocaine. But just every interaction we had with NATO,
Not real cocaine.
yeah,
Yeah, not real cocaine, simulated BB LARP cocaine, which we didn't even was the funny part.
Which we didn't. But every interaction we had with NATO was just upsetting and negative. And we really just had no reason to support NATO at all. I mean, if they were around the town and talking to us and giving us money and chocolate and stuff like was planned, well, then absolutely we'd be able to support them. But
well, there were supposed to be presence patrols planned. Like it was in the op order and everything. Like it was in the details. We were supposed to be in the city. Like every platoon was supposed to send somebody at a certain time to be in the city doing this. First of all, I don't think any NATO was given like any kind of in-game currency to spend. So if we were spending anything, it was going to be like actual real cash, or anything that
which no one wants to do.
They didn't give you guys Fetty bucks?
No, I didn't know there was an in-game currency until after, like at the AAR.
Oh, weird.
And then as far as like, the idea was supposed to be that we would pretty much let anybody in, like even if it was a bunch of troublemakers, how bad could like 4 troublemakers do, or how much damage could 4 troublemakers do in a company, in the center of a company of NATO troops? That was kind of our thinking. So it's like, even if they're here to make trouble, big fucking deal, let them in. But for like,
it would also make an interesting experience for you guys too. That on one hand, you're like, oh, hey, we want to win hearts and minds. We want to trust people by allowing them to interact with us. And then they decide to like drop grenades or start shooting at you guys. It's, it's one of those things where it's an interaction, and it's not, I guess this is supposed to simulate like being on tour over in a civilian population overseas, really. And
Right. Yeah.
By
Well, I mean,
completely
that's why it's an insurgency game. You are dealing with, everyone's a potential hostile, but at the same time, everyone is still kind of trying to function in society.
Right. And by NATO completely separating themselves from that and barring anybody from letting them in, and then only coming into the city a handful of times and starting, from our perspective, it was starting all of the fire.
But I think a lot of that was also propaganda. I think NATO didn't start everything that we thought they did. I think I think a lot of it was propaganda.
The first time they came into the city and they started taking over buildings, and people were like, they're taking over this building, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh, crap, like, what's going on? So I start, getting my rifle ready and everything, and all of a sudden I start hearing, and I see a couple of guys moving across the field a little bit. They start shooting at people, and then I hear someone's blank firing, so I start blank firing, and then it just devolves into a giant gunfight at that point.
Yeah. Which was kind of awesome for Connor and I being in in McReagan's when that popped off.
That was the coolest, because we were unarmed. They have a policy where you enter the building and they want you to leave your rifles out front.
And your handguns. They had us totally disarmed.
Oh yeah, and handguns too. Me and Eric went in there and we were in like the front of the burger line trying to like close a Wolf Cola business deal, and then shots start just popping off, and I'm laying down and they're coming in. Shots are coming in from this murder hole I'm next to, and it was crazy. There was like dozens of us inside this building. It was really cool to I guess be helpless like that,
Yeah, it was weird. It was almost like
very weird.
It was like a moment in like a survival horror game kind of,
Yeah,
where it's
that was
like,
very interesting.
yeah, you gotta fucking take cover, and then we got like the VIP escort out in the vehicle when Michael came in and got us.
We both assumed that Michael would have done the smart thing and just dipped out of there, but he stood by.
Yeah, but I think something that I want to I had an idea about this game that I want to get your perspective on, Trenton, and I think the rest of us talked about it a little bit. For NATO for this game, we thought it might be an interesting idea if NATO had more cash and like had a lot of in-game currency to go around, and maybe Rusfor had more like ammo. So
No, that would have been pretty cool. One of the concepts that I think a couple of it would have been cool if they had actually let civilians like set up like some sort of shops there.
in the
you
green
know?
zone.
So like, yeah, like a CP. Like if they had picked like some sort of building, have general like in like the idea is like they have in Afghanistan they have kind of like they let the local kind of set up like small little table shops and just like buy from it. I thought that would have been something that would have been pretty cool. But and if they had given it cool as well, I think that way they could have actually let us go and do stuff. But no, like I said, I didn't know that there was an in-game currency until I had talked to a civilian like at the NATO trial. Like I had no idea there was an in-game currency other than these.
Wow. Yeah. So it seems like NATO needed some currency because I mean, from our perspective, we were flush with cash.
We made so much money.
And what's interesting to me is that we made so much money because, like, for this game, we were Wolf Cola, and Wolf Cola is an Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference, and that was Connor's idea, was to do the cola company, and we just bought like 192 cans of Coke and just cut out labels and spray glued them to the outside of these Coke cans. And we actually ended up selling all of our product.
Yeah, we had like 2 left by the end of it, which we gave to like Trenton.
Yeah.
I kept the can that you gave me. I have it. It's in the other room.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
I got that can. I got one of the spent belts from the PKM, and then I have
nice.
it was the first time I ever actually stole ammo off a dead body. So it's like 5 or 6 BBs in a bag. I decided to keep it just as a souvenir, but it's chilling in my other room right now.
That's amazing. What I found was cool though, like it was just the fact that as a civilian, we had that degree of flexibility. That doing a cola company was totally viable, and playing the cola company straight, I think you had it right, Connor, like as like chaotic good. Playing that straight, we made cash.
Oh my God, we made almost 11,000 Fetty bucks, and the next richest company was nowhere near that.
Yeah, and we also made a lot of money from the security company.
Yeah, well, what it was is that Wolf Cola and Wolf Security too dealt exclusively in Fetty bucks, and almost no other company did that. Almost every other company in game was trying to make like real money back to like refund their ticket or the equipment used to run their store. But we got all our cola on wholesale, and we had like zero or next to zero startup cost for the company, so we could just deal in Fetty bucks and make so much money, and through it get so many BBs. And then we were able to fund the entire civilian population's like ammo supply by Sunday because we just had so much ammo or so much money.
I mean, we had ammo too, yeah. Like we got flushed with ammo and money, and just it was great. And we did that all by playing it straight. Like we didn't have to do anything crazy or do anything shady. And every time like an opportunity to do something shady would come up, like someone would be like, hey, we could do this deal, and we could do this kind of sketchy thing. We could fuck with these guys, and we would kind of think on it and be like, yeah, maybe. But then, oftentimes we'd be like, is this in character? Is this kind of something we would do? Is it more beneficial if maybe we stay on the good side of the government? And then crazier shit would happen as a result of that.
Yeah, it always seemed like by the time we got around to, oh, hey, should we do this? Should we do that? All right, here's what we're going to do. Immediately after that, something nuts would kick off, and it would be like, all right, well, this is 10 times cooler than what we thought was going to happen with what we were about to do, so let's go do that.
Yeah, and I think the main thing, though, is, like, we were just happy. We were happy enough if we got, like, barely any trigger time. We created, like, in our head, characters before we went to this game, complete with, motivations, alignments, and goals, and our primary goals were what we worked toward as opposed to like military goals. I think that was an interesting way to play the game, and I think that it worked out pretty well.
Well, and it worked out so well too that our characters actually, we were able to stick with them so consistently. You know, we always aligned sort of in that chaotic good side. We always, I mean, how do you even say it? We always just stuck in ways that our characters would have acted. You know.
Yeah. And I think that was what it did on the NATO side, like the military side. Is that something that's as prevalent, do you think, Trenton?
Not really. I mean, I guess, because I know one of the big things about MilSim West is like, the hurry up and wait. So you always have that. There's always that feeling. It's like no matter what you're doing, even if you're sitting around drinking Modelo from a warm backpack, it's still kind of like, all right, this is kind of role play-ish, but at a certain point, we just started getting so frustrated. We kind of lost all thoughts of we just started thinking about, okay, what's going to happen? When are we going to go out? When are we going to actually get to do stuff? When is stuff going to kick off for us?
Okay, so you felt like the opportunity for serious role play was bogged down by the chain of command of this particular event.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was option for leave, but they announced it rather quickly before the game. Like it wasn't, but like maybe a week or two before the game that they announced that leave was an option. And then they had these requirements, like you had to bring civilian clothing with you. And for someone like me, like I try to pack as light as possible. So like I didn't even bring a spare uniform. I didn't think that was going to be the only time I could interact with the civilians.
Okay.
So I once I figured out that was going to happen, it was one of those things where it's like I got to the point where it was like, okay, what can I do to start to try and get out to the city? And something I want to talk about. I remember at old events, mainly direct action events, but it is kind of comparable where squads would go up to like COs or even platoon leaders and they'd be like, hey, we've got this idea to do this. Can we do it? And most of the time it was always like, oh yeah, sure, dude, yeah, absolutely. You want to go fuck with Rust 4? Go fuck with Rust 4. But this time it was a lot more structured, where it's like we were more or less just waiting to see what was going to happen next, what we were going to be told to do next. Like I said, with the NATO trial, we didn't even know what was going on with that. We just knew we had to pull security. That's all we knew.
Yeah.
It was a lot of like just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Damn. So, I mean, yeah. So, suggestions for future people who are going to an Insurgency game who want to go NATO is probably definitely bring some civilian clothing, and then like try to, and I like part of this is on like a big part of this is obviously on the chain of commands end as well, but like something that you can kind of try to do to mitigate some of the frustrations you had, I think, in the future, something that someone could try to do at future events is like, I don't want to say hound your cadre, but kind of like really try to like be in touch with the cadre super hard, which it kind of sucks having to do that to be able to do much at the game, but it might be like kind of a necessity.
Now I do want to say it's I don't want to put all the blame on the cadre. I unfortunately didn't have the best of squad lead, and the rest of the squad. Megan would talk your ear about it, or talk your ear off about it. We had some interesting squad mates for sure, but the squad leader was more. They were kind of feeling like it was just a regular direct action mission.
Okay, so they weren't super into the role play aspect.
They had kind of done it because like they had even made up like Chechen flags to wear, like patches wise. They were trying to do this kind of stuff, but anytime any kind of orders would come down, our squad lead were more or less like, instead of suggesting doing something, he would just be, oh, that's not going to work. Oh, that sucks. That's a stupid idea. We're going to get killed. Oh, well.
Well, but sometimes you got to do stuff where you like think you might get killed, because sometimes that's where the crazy shit happens. That's where the fun interactions happen.
To be 100% honest, I paid $200 to drive 12 hours to plan for 6 months to come to an event to get killed as much as possible. That is why I'm there as NATO, because I want to hand out candy and get shot in the back of the head. That's why I'm there. People to fuck me over. I was there to not kill civilians. I was trying as hard as possible. Even the last day, so if you remember NATO's hastily or really slow retreat in the truck,
Yeah.
when everyone killed Saturday night, our CEO told us as we were loading up dead into the truck, he's like, "Don't worry, tomorrow we're gonna roll everybody." And I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. I'm not here to kill everyone. I want to make friends with the civilians. So Sunday rolls around, we assault the city. I waited until I saw raised rifles at NATO to shoot someone. I very distinctly remember I was in not the golf building, but one of the secondary buildings into the city.
Yeah.
And I was peeking out of a murder hole. I was in the building looking at a murder hole, and I see 2 civilians walking around, and I see they got weapons, and I'm just sitting there waiting. And finally, one of them lifts their weapon, and I light him up. And then the next guy does the same thing, and I light him up. But I ended up dying because of that. But I wasn't going to shoot any. I wasn't just going to roll around like it's a direct action, like everybody's my enemy. I'm like, nah, I'm here for the LARPing. I want to pretend like I don't know if you're a civilian or not, and I have an ROE. I can't shoot somebody who has a rifle because everybody's got a rifle. I want to shoot somebody because I literally think they're about to kill somebody on my side. That's the only time I shot someone.
I think that's a good attitude to have, and it sounds to I mean, from some of the comments that people make in the general interest group and some of the comments people make, it seems like that's an attitude that a lot of NATO, may or may not have had to the same extent. But I think that's an important takeaway, is regardless of if you're on a military faction or not, being ready to role play and being ready to attempt to play some kind of character and act like you're there for the more peaceful aspects of the game as well. I think that's how you're going to really have fun, is if you're expecting to go in doing that and trying to really make that happen. And I wonder if so something I'm considering is actually wondering if a NATO-aligned faction of some kind might be a good idea to try in the future, because I wonder if 10 to 12 really organized guys who are really into the LARP aspect on NATO could make a little bit of a difference. Because I remember at Grozny Insurgency, I saw pictures of businesses that literally had Grom only spray painted on the side of their walls, because they only wanted the Grom guys in there, because apparently the Grom guys were some of the only dudes on NATO who were actually into the LARPing. Was that a thing, Connor? I saw the pictures. Was that as big a thing as I thought it was?
I don't know. I know that I personally, my squad, I took my squad into the city all the time just because we could, and I was in charge of it. So I tried to take us out there as much as possible, and we did. But yeah, I remember, God, which one was it? But there were a few buildings that definitely had, Grom only written on there. And I talked to a whole lot of civilians, out of character, of course, but we were talking about how a lot of the guys on NATO were having a hard time at Insurgency, just getting into the role play and not shooting everybody on sight and stuff. Apparently they had a really hard time with that. Even people who didn't, I don't know, there were just people who acted like the civilians were constantly out to get them. I remember I was on the checkpoint for the green zone Saturday night, which was in the middle of the city, and this one NATO guy just comes back with a hostage civilian, and the civilian's like, "What's going on?" He was even breaking character. He's like, what do you want from me, man? I don't have anything to do. And this guy was like, "He has a gun," and it's like, yeah, of course he has a gun. Everyone's allowed to. I don't know. People just didn't really. Well, some people just didn't really understand the role play aspect of it. And I really tried to drive that home with the guys I was leading at that one.
Yeah, I get the impression that the MilSim West Insurgency series is supposed to be this peaceful tension between the civilians, Rus 4, and NATO. There's supposed to be this, an attempt to try and sway the civilian population, whether it's some or all of it, towards your side. To say, hey, these NATO guys helped me out. They either gave me ammo or they helped me earn some money so that way I could make my living in the city. Whenever shit hits the fan finally, or if they need, or if somebody decides to attack them, I may pick up my rifle and join them instead of just directly going with Rus 4, because the Chechen Collapse is based in Grozny, Chechnya.
And if you actually if you look at Chechen history, there's a lot of good reasons for Chechen citizens to not like Russians.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's 100% what the format's supposed to be. The problem is typically that there's some green NATO guys that usually sway the civilian faction against them.
Yeah.
That's something that's pretty big to me, I think. Most people who end up going NATO, because let's face it, most people who go into Airsoft, they kind of start out with like multicam. Multicam's pretty cheap to get now that it's like Army standard issue. You can pick up a BD for like $30. So I imagine, and most people start out with an M4. So most people start out as NATO when they go to MilSim West. And I wonder if it's a lot of green NATO guys who it may be their first or maybe even their second MilSim West event. And they don't quite understand that it's not going to be a regular MilSim West where everybody's going to shoot you and you're shooting everybody else. It's honestly like I totally expected to not even have to be resupplied on ammo because I wasn't trying to shoot as many people as I possibly could. And I think the squads who ended up going out first were definitely – they at least had a good amount of green MSW players. Because there wasn't a lot of like the regular MilSim West teams. Like Grom wasn't there. I think there was a small group of MARSOC. I ended up being on a team with a couple of dudes who actually were apparently with TFM at the last event. They were playing like these SEAL/Delta guys, and then aside from that, it was a majority of multicam regulars, which is actually an oddity now in MilSim West. But I have this feeling that it was a lot of green players who honestly had itchy trigger fingers and didn't want to die, almost, as weird as it sounds. Because, like I said, I go to MilSim West to die.
Well, Eric, remember how shaky those guys at the checkpoint were?
Oh, my God, yeah.
This is a good story.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we rolled up on the NATO checkpoint like Saturday at like.
We should have recorded this.
Oh, absolutely. I'm surprised we didn't. Anyway, so we roll up to this NATO checkpoint. There's 4 of us in the car. We have a G18 under the back seat, fucking seats, excuse me, and a CZ Scorpion up in the like front glove box. So they're not very accessible. We roll up. There's four guys in our car.
Well, we expected to die.
Yeah, well, that was the plan. So we rolled up. And we were like, hello, we're here to sell Wolf Cola to friendly NATO friends. And the guy was like, keep your hands where we can see them. Keep them outside the window. And
we did that. We did that.
We did that. We were cooperating. And we were like, yes, Wolf Cola's in the trunk. You can have a look. We want you to buy it and be friends. And we want to be friends with you. And
yeah, drinking Chechnya together.
Drinking Chechnya together. And the guy was just like, don't move. Why are you here?
Yeah, and I think they didn't get it.
Walks around the side and is looking at me with like these death eyes through the. I was sitting on the left passenger side or left driver's side, excuse me, rear. And this guy he's looking at me through the window and he's just flicking his safety on and off, his fingers on the trigger. He's just it was just like, I'm not here to hurt you. What do you want from me? I just want to sell you cola. Just stop it.
What I liked was the dude on my side, the dude to the right, because I was in the passenger seat, and the dude on my side, I just like kept going with the sales pitch. Like I had my hands outside the window, and I didn't stop the sales pitch. I just kept fucking going with it, and like talking about if you make it into city, you can buy Wolf Cola at our retail partners. And I was like, oh, and I know, many NATO watching their figure. I understand, you have to look good for all the ladies back home, and maybe the Chechen ladies too, right? And
The guy you was talking to on your side, he was into it.
yeah, he liked it. He was laughing.
This one other guy who was on Michael's side, he was laughing and he was into it. But the problem was whoever was in charge of the checkpoint was just he was not having it, and he wasn't letting his guys talk to us or interact with us. He was just not. You remember the guy with the face?
Yeah,
he
I
had
remember.
he had an entire squad like surround the vehicle 50 feet out.
Yeah, and he was like, "Guys, shut up! Stop talking to them. Just let us sell cola to you, man." It's
We ended up having to tell pretty much everybody who was running the checkpoint is like, dude, just let them in. It doesn't matter what they're here to do. Honestly, if they're gonna start dropping grenades and start lighting up blank fires, it doesn't. We'll take them out. We've got
it'll be a welcome distraction
surrounding them. If you can't deal with one vehicle, then honestly, I really hope that one vehicle can take out all 4 platoons of NATO, because that'd be fucking dope.
Well, and anyways, like it'd be fun too if they got in and started shooting at you guys. It'd be better than just sitting around. You guys would tourniquet them back up. It'd be fine. It'd just be.
Oh
fun.
my god! I mean, the only times we got rush for contact, they ended up like dropping most of their troops like way beyond my range. So I'm just standing there like being woken up after a half an hour of sleep. Like I'm cold. I can't see. I can't reach them. Why are you bothering me with this?
Oh wait, another question I have for you though, Trenton.
If they were inside the compound, it would have been game on, man.
So did you guys get hit by civilians Saturday night at like 2 a.m?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually.
Because I remember me and Eric, we were hanging out in the city. Everybody else has already left in Michael's car. And we just saw this whole mass of civilians gearing up and loading up in trucks and shit. And then we're like, you guys want to come hit NATO with us? And it was like, yeah, but I'm not wearing socks and I'm kind of sleepy. So I don't know. But so I didn't know if that followed through or not.
Yeah, they did. It was funny though, because I knew one of the civilians who ended up attacking us. So me and Megan, once the attack was pretty much all but stopped, we found him dead in the field. So we sat down. We actually just chatted. We were talking with him for probably a good like 10, 15 minutes. And what was apparently supposed to happen is these guys had this idea is like, hey, let's go fuck with NATO. And they brought this idea to Russ for. They were like, hey, we're going to go fuck with NATO. If you got like 6 or 7 dudes with nods who wants to like attack from the rear while we fuck them in the front, that'd be pretty dope. We could do some serious damage. And Russ told them like, yeah, do that. Get as many civilians as you can and go do that. We'll be there. And
then Russ never showed.
And
Russ they sent civilians to die in front of NATO. That was it.
That's very in character for Russians dealing with Chechens, from our understanding of Chechen history.
What I really want to do, I'm really sold on the Grozny University idea for next year.
I don't care if anybody else wants to do it but me. I will totally be in charge of Grozny University next year.
Yeah.
All right.
I've already got plans on how I want to do that.
I don't know what this is, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, I'd love to do
we'll talk more about it when we're not recording. I don't want to spoil too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm real excited about this idea.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No. It's all good. It's all good.
But that leads me to another point though, is that like the freedom you have to just do whatever kind of business you want is just absurd. Like,
oh yeah,
so many businesses.
we did the Wolf Cola thing across the street from us. Yeah,
there was a tattoo shop,
tattoo store, ordnance disposal.
There was a convenience store type thing called Chechen 11, take on 7-Eleven.
Lawyer's office.
Yeah, lawyer's office. So you could sue people.
We had a couple of nightclubs going on.
Yeah, there was a card house and a gay club.
Glory hole.
Yeah, the Glory Hole. There was an oil company.
Yeah.
Yeah, an American aligned oil company.
Which
They killed
I'm surprised the American-aligned oil company didn't have some kind of NATO support. I feel like that would have been a good opportunity for NATO to have a civilian interaction.
enough, from my
That
understanding.
was a huge thing. After the NATO trial, we heard from the NATO, the American aligned oil company, that was like, "Hey, we're going to be attacked by Russian war. We need help." And they just abandoned them. They were just like, "Fuck you."
Yeah,
And
while we were there, it was
Dude, send a platoon into that fucking building. We could make that a stronghold and at least help them. If I heard that they ended up getting like raided like 7 times in one night by Russian.
Yeah, me and Eric were there. We were barefoot and raiding the building, and it was hilarious.
We didn't even do anything. Like, we were literally just at the very back, just yelling "Barefoot Mafia" while everyone else went into the building and raided. And we just kind of came in and we're like, "Do we get a participation trophy?"
But we were in
We were there. That's what matters.
the entire city, and all the Russians were in that building because we were just fed up with these guys killing Chechens indiscriminately and all sorts of stuff.
Which I also think a
cool.
lot of that was propaganda.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There was like one, I don't know, like the tattoo guys were telling me about it, and I kind of trust the tattoo guys. So
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wonder if the thing is, I think even like as NATO, I think there was more flexibility that could have been utilized. Like, because Hunter and some of the other guys that he was with were in the city as plainclothes for a lot of the event. And then Nigel and Kevin were actually NATO aligned, and they were kind of in the city sowing the seeds of discord, like trying to mess with the economy a little bit and doing some chaos gremlin type stuff. And
yeah, that was weird.
yeah, it was weird. I don't know if it actually ended up working
Well,
for him,
there was
because I think we ended up being flush with ammo and money that we used to fight NATO as a result.
Yeah, well, there were 4 plainclothes NATO guys that me and my buddy Tom, who he lives with me, but we wound up like detaining these 4 plainclothes NATO guys, which you wouldn't have normally done. The problem was it was during like the giant NATO raid where they were trying to like take over the hospital. It was the hoodie who.
Yeah,
And we found these 4 NATO, like undercover NATO guys who like didn't have their IDs or anything, so we knew they were undercover NATO, and we like
That was
take
my
them.
squad. They
Yeah.
sent my squad in like that.
yeah,
That was a big.
that was a mistake.
Well, okay, so one of the plans for Saturday was, okay, they had taken like 5 or 6 dudes from my squad. They're like, they had civvies, so they were gonna send these guys in, and they were supposed to like create a diversion, and we were supposed to go in and raid some ISIS strongholds.
Oh, well, Wolf Cola did that for you.
Yeah,
Before we even like started getting the like uniformed troops loaded up, we heard they all died. They got frustrated and went to the nightclub. That was my squad, and I I mean,
They deserved
I
it.
don't really say bad about anything or anybody, but it's like,
I think they deserved it, though.
frustrated, but
They deserved a nightclub night.
yeah, I mean, I guess they deserve nightclub night, but at the same time, it's like, you could come back and try and do something else with the rest of us. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things to say about my squad. That was interesting. Like Eric said earlier, I would be very interested in starting like trying to put together a squad of really dedicated LARPers for NATO to be strictly for like civilian relations,
yeah.
Like even if we did like basic bitch grunt uniform stuff, if we could get together and like our only goal is just to get as many civilians on our side. Like if we went into the town with nothing but like sidearms and a magazine, I would be fucking stoked with that.
So
or
here was
like-
an idea. I'm sorry. Continue.
what I think Connor was saying. If I went as a civilian, or no, I think it was you, Ehas. If we went as civilians, but we actually were like a dedicated NATO group, it's like we're just here to spread propaganda, like basically like CIA shit.
Yeah,
That's something we're kind of thinking about doing too. Is like, let's do some CIA shit where we're here just to win hearts and minds. We come in with like pistols and a bag full of cash. That's what I want to do next time, I think.
yeah, that would be dope. Or the other thing that Connor and I were thinking, and this is something that the Brits actually ended up doing to a certain extent. But like NATO, if you make sure that you have like civilian clothes and kind of like ambiguous concealment gear, like a low profile setup, if you go as like a low profile NATO special unit, you could theoretically make it in and out of the city kind of anonymously and do some really crazy shit. So right before the firefight started on Sunday, the taxi came into town from the direction of the NATO fob, and Connor and I are looking at it, and I just look over at Connor and I'm like, wouldn't it be fucking crazy if there were like 4 NATO dudes in that taxi in plain clothes and they just drove right past everybody who's anticipating this big attack and kidnapped the mayor?
Dude, that would be some epic shit. Like, I'm serious. Like, the next, if I go to an insurgency again, hopefully I do, because that was pretty dope. I want to do some real like ODA shit, like some fucking CIA kidnap people, give them bags of money to companies or people, just like.
We were talking about that exact thing on the car ride back. They're like, how could we do a NATO LARP heavy thing?
Yeah.
Doing some OGA shit,
And
as like plain clothes NATO guys.
I think NATO could really benefit from that, because like I said, there's a lot of green people who end up on NATO side. So if they had some really dedicated LARPers who went in as totally signed up as NATO, but they don't even bring uniforms. It's nothing but plain clothes, and they pack their like tiny little chest rigs and M4s and like some little tiny bag that nobody sees anywhere. They bury it. That would be some dope shit.
Well, and the problem with that though, like that's a great idea, but the problem, and not to be like too critical of like command and stuff, but the problem would be getting that approved and stuff, which is a bummer. The problem would be getting that approved.
I don't know. I bet if the right group pitched it, I bet if the right group had a solid pitch, I bet they could get it done.
If the right group pitched it, that's
Josh mentioned this in the AAR, that he's not going to hold your hand to be able to create your own adventure. If you have a crazy idea like that, you got to pitch it his way, so that way he knows what's going on. And most likely he's going to say, all right, this sounds like a great idea. Or he may even say, come back, or I think this is a cool starting point. Come back when it's a little bit more fleshed out and figure out what you want to do, because he's not going to do it for you.
And he specifically mentioned like CAA stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people were thinking kind of in that same realm of doing some little sketchy stuff, some underground, undercover type stuff, versus like and obviously you're going to have people that they just want to go there to wear multicam and shoot people
and be grunts.
But with the understanding that it should be less about the gunfights and more about the talking and interacting with people, because that's what everyone's seen videos from like Bunker Tactical and stuff like that, and random stuff on YouTube of fully kitted out soldiers with IBAs and all this helmet and armor stuff, and they walk around and they give candy to kids, or they play soccer with them in the streets, doing stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, someone ambushes them. Okay, there's your gunfight.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting from MilSim West, even as like a plainclothes or as like a uniformed NATO troop. I was hoping to be like, all right, let's go. I had a bag of Jolly Ranchers in my pocket anytime I went.
Which I ended up eating several of those after the game was
over.
over.
I got that experience though last year at Insurgency though. As NATO last year, I got that experience, and that was fantastic. And it's such a bummer that you guys weren't able to get that same really interesting experience. But that happened. It's great.
So I think ultimately the biggest issue was apparently last year. So you said that the green zone for NATO was in the city.
Right.
I guess some people complained that there was too much of a NATO presence. So they decided to pull NATO out of the city. And what ended up happening was that the presence totally disappeared. Because we were a mile and a half down the road, basically. If anything were to happen to, like, if they sent a squad on a presence patrol and we were to have a QRF, they would have to load that QRF into the deuce and a half and drive that deuce and a half down. And, if you've ever been on NATO, you know that getting NATO troops, standard NATO troops, organized for a QRF is like a 30-minute job.
It's slower than like getting your kids going to like the doctor in your minivan. It's
like herding cats. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I did make the comment when you guys were bailing out of the police station. I was like, man, I don't think I've seen a group that didn't have small children take this long to get into a van ever.
Yeah. and while you guys were doing that, we just kept throwing grenades. I threw one. We just kept posing you guys with the RPK. It was just I
saw that coming from a mile away, and as soon as they told us, it's like, all right, everybody load into the truck. I saw that coming from a mile away. I'm just like, fuck this. I ran to the closest building, and I'm like, I'm gonna pull security because I know we're about to get we're gonna get wrecked.
And you did.
And over, and I lit up like two dudes. Like I came around the corner, and I saw the rifles coming around the corner before I could light anybody up. And I was just like, I know this is gonna be a fucking disaster.
Yeah,
it
did end up being a bit of a disaster.
Well, and it was really cool though, because not all the civilians were expecting it. I remember I was talking to whoever the guy in the orange jacket was as he lit that first grenade, and he threw it, and then everybody around us, all the civilians who didn't know that was going to happen, just split and ran away and like took cover behind other buildings. And then I threw another one. And then my buddy Tom got like underneath a truck with the RPK and just started hosing stuff. And it really devolved quickly, but all the civilians really reacted and adapted to that situation within like a split second.
Yeah, I was still on executive security for the mayor at that point, so I didn't actually participate in that. I was just booking it and like staying on the mayor's hip because he was just walking around. And I'm like, someone's going to cap this dude.
Yeah.
I remember you remember the mayor approaching the building asking if he could get the water?
Yeah.
I was the dude who was like, all right, go grab the water. Because I'm like, none of these dudes are armed and nobody else is saying shit. I don't know who's taking command of this.
You know what I thought would have been super interesting? You guys should have held the mayor hostage at that point.
It would have been interesting, but at that point I was just focused on like, okay, we are just here. We are surviving. Like, I don't even know how most of NATO ended up in the police, the police station. It just like it was one of those things where it's like instinct. Every NATO dude who had any kind of thought was like, okay, we're going to the police station, and that's how I ended up there. It's like I don't know why, but I ended up there, and it was just a bunch of like mixed people. Like there was I don't think any full squad was there. So nobody was thinking on like 100%. We were just purely defensive at that point.
Yeah. So,
but no, that would have been cool if we kidnapped the mayor.
That was probably one of my biggest highlights of that whole thing. It was so cool. It devolved so quickly and adapted into like a total just kill all NATO. So
yeah, it was
very cool.
Straight chaos. It was crazy.
And then once everybody was dead, all the civilians were just running around to the street shooting blanks and yelling "Slava Grozny!" and it was just the energy there was just unreal.
And I think the thing is that the type of experience you get at an insurgency game, like the type of interactions you have, like you don't get those really anywhere else. Like you don't get the experience. Like my favorite moment of my favorite highlight of the whole event was still the first night, because I went from instigating a bum fight to grabbing an MP5 to run up to try to take the hospital that we thought NATO was trying to take, and look in Miami Vice in my pink shirt and an MP5 trying to clear out this hospital, then getting ordered to pull back by the police. Then you and I were there while that dude with the orange jacket was like, I'm going to throw a grenade at this truck. And we're like, yeah, go do it, man.
He said, you guys think I can, if I draw from the hip, you think I can pop these guys? And we were like, probably. He's like, watch this. And he goes up and he goes like, pop, 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 pop.
Yeah. And then he just runs back to Wolf Cola. I think it was you who pointed out, you're like, hey man, we got a problem. That dude just went and sat down at Wolf Cola. and I just sprint back while the police are catching up with him, and the police are like, "Why is this man at your building? Do you know this man? Did you put him up to his crimes?" And I just like speech 100 my way out of getting in trouble with the police. I'm like,
Meanwhile, I was still shooting at NATO.
yeah. Meanwhile, Connor is still shooting at NATO, and I'm just being like, Wolf Cola has no part in such, separatist, degenerate actions. This man does not represent the corporate values of drinking Chechnya together. We will burn the chair that he sat upon. And
yeah, it really was cola salesman by day and insurgent by afternoon. Like we'd change clothes and we'd come back and we were cola salesman, and then like I throw on my cap can and like my jacket, and suddenly I'm in insurgent mode. It was really, really.
Yeah. So when we did like the whenever I ended up getting pulled into security stuff, I would do my best to kind of do some stuff that would like it didn't really work for like the first one because I didn't have a hood or anything, which I really should have had.
I'll give you the ski mask.
Yeah, well that was for the trial, but for the raid on the hotel where we had to evict the ISIS guys. I actually zipped up my track jacket all the way to cover up the Wolf Cola tattoo I had on my neck.
Oh, I threw on my old Soviet steel pot.
Yeah.
Well,
because I kind of like that about the Insurgency game is like you can do some sketchy shit, and if you can like kind of OPSEC it at least a little bit, it makes sense for a character who's like, hey, I work at this Wolf Cola company, I don't want people thinking Wolf Cola is involved in this, so when I go do stuff with security, I'll cover up the tattoo, cover my face. People didn't realize, like, there was a good number of people who had no idea I was at the trial because I wore my ski mask, or the ski mask you gave me rather, the entire time.
Yeah. Well, and I had my wrap up and the cap can on and everything, so, and I wasn't wearing the Wolf Cola shirt. Like, the police were asking us, like, who are you guys? And it's like, we're Wolf Cola. Like, we're here because the mayor hired us. He was like, weird.
Yeah.
Because we really dressed for the occasion, I guess. Like, we could really get into, like, fighting mode, I guess, and not cola serving mode.
Yeah, I think a full change of clothes should definitely like,
and a ski mask, man.
Yeah, something to hide your identity. And something that looks totally different. Like the guy who was with us, Justin, Sinister, he actually was able to, he basically divested himself of his whole security uniform and walked around plain clothes, and no one realized he was affiliated with us, and he did a bunch of Chaos Gremlin shit with Nigel and Kevin and totally got away with it, because then he would be standing there talking to the same people he had like just assassinated a couple hours earlier, now wearing his security stuff, and they like either they didn't care or they didn't know that was him.
Right.
So you can get away with some crazy shit if you're a little smart about it. Like, this is the game where you practice all the shit you read in spy novels.
Yeah. Well, and I'm even talking to some guys that I'm talking to my friends here that weren't able to make it this time for next year, and they're already going crazy with coming up with plans and thinking of some crazy cool like undercover espionage shit they can do and all sorts of stuff. It's really cool. Again, just the amount of creative freedom you have and what you can pull off if you're smart enough to do it.
Yeah, I really don't think it can be overstated just how awesome the format is for flexibility and how many possibilities there are and how you can play it totally differently from the way that any other airsoft is played. Like, I would put this, because previously I said that like Omega Productions was like the most unique airsoft game I'd played recently. I would say this is on that level of being something that no one else is offering an equivalent to.
And I want to add in, so even as like a plain or like a uniformed NATO troop there was nothing special about me. This event was so much more different because like the first time I got in the town, I'm just looking around like, okay, I'm literally surrounded by people with rifles and I don't know who's about to fucking shoot me. And then like 2 minutes later, my guard is down because I'm chatting with dudes I know. And then 5 minutes later, shit starts popping off. Everybody disappeared that I know. And I'm like, all right, who's shooting at me? Who is shooting right now? I don't know who the fuck is shooting, and I don't know who the fuck they're shooting at. It was a very, very different experience from anything else I've ever done in Airsoft. I've done MilSim West before, and it's like I know who the enemy is, but this was another story.
Yeah, that was definitely one thing that I really enjoyed about this. The constant tension of not knowing when shit's going to pop off, who's going to start fighting who, and everything like that, who's aligned with who even sometimes. Because I didn't realize that the Roscoe Oil was a NATO-aligned faction until partway into Saturday.
Yeah, and they were doing some like kind of crafty stuff, trying to be friendly with people. Like they gave us a bag of diamonds, like to try and basically buy us off. And we actually were friendly with Roscoe Oil for most of the game until
the other civilian companies came up to us and they were like, "Are you guys friends with Roscoe Oil?" And I was like, "I don't know, like not really, but also like not really." Like we gave them a free cola.
Not really, but kinda.
Yeah,
I actually let Roscoe like hide in our building several times that game because I kind of thought, I'm like, all right, this guy's an oil tycoon. Depending on how the wind blows with NATO, like maybe having this guy in our pocket is beneficial. So I tried to stay friendly with him, and then we kind of threw him under the bus when it was not beneficial.
What happened was after the remember we were doing the ISIS eviction notice.
Yeah,
and this is where I really got fell in favor with the Russians, is that we were doing this. You were there actually.
Yep.
But it was like 2 or 3 Russian guys just are hanging out in the city. And like, "You guys need help?" And we're like, "Yes, help us clear this hotel." And they were like, "Okay." And so they just helped us clear this hotel. And we came back. I offered them Wolf Cola, and we were rocking back to Wolf Cola. And I said, like, "Who's in our building right now?" And the Russian guys were like, "Oh fuck, it's Roscoe Oil," and they just run and just hose these guys down. And I was like, "Well, I don't know what that's about, but I guess Roscoe Oil's bad or something." And then the lawyer came up to us, and he was like, "Are you guys friends with Roscoe Oil?" And I was like, "Not really, but also, I don't know." And then the lawyer was like, "Because they're bad." And I was like, "Okay, I guess they're bad." And then he's like, he said, "Did Roscoe Oil ever harass you or do anything bad to you?" And I was like, "Not really." He's like, "Are you sure?" "Oh, yeah. Yes, I was traumatized, and they fucking like trespassed in our building," which I guess they did. I don't know. I had no idea what was happening, but I played along with it. I guess it was good because if we didn't, then everybody would have thought Wolf Coil was a NATO sympathizer. So I'm glad we did what we did. But
apparently, a bunch of people thought we were Rus for.
Really? Active Rus for?
Yeah, there were people who told me, they're like, "I thought you guys were Rus for," and we're like, No,
we were just Wolf Cola. Like we would have fought with NATO if NATO was nice to us, and we would have fought with Russians if the Russians were nice to us. Turns out the Russians were nice to us, so we fought with the Russians.
Yeah, I wonder if NATO had let you guys in the first night, how much different the whole event would have been.
Well, because we had a massive amount of ammo and money and influence. So think about the fact that we were the security for the trial of NATO's war crimes. How much different would it have been if we were in NATO's pocket and were the security for that trial?
Right. I mean, we definitely. I have a strong feeling that we could have swung a good portion of the civilian faction over towards NATO side, because we had a lot of the businesses in our pockets.
Yeah, I mean, we
did.
We ended up like absorbing a couple of dudes who were there as like a smaller security company. Chechen 11 were our business partners. McReagan were our business partners.
We didn't we buy out the Glory Hole?
Yeah, we ended up absorbing the Glory Hole.
We were great buddies, tattoo guys. I mean, we had almost everybody.
Yeah, and we had a massive amount of ammo and money. And if you spread enough ammo and money around, you get everyone on your side.
Oh yeah.
So, it's interesting that, really we were kind of poised where if we had the motivation, we could have thrown some chaos in there and really made things more in NATO's favor.
Yeah, well, and the problem was like that first night at 1:30 in the morning, we went up to NATO's checkpoint.
Yeah, and we're there at 1:30 in the morning, standing in the headlights, and we're like,
Well, we were just bored. We were like, hey, you guys want to go try to sell to NATO, but we'll like charge them like 20 Fetty bucks instead of like the 5. And it was like, yeah, it sounds like a lucrative business deal, I guess. And so we went over there, um, and we drove out on that road because I knew where it was from last year, and we just drove over there. And we got stopped. We got strobe lighted, like 100 feet away from their checkpoint, I guess. I couldn't really even tell. And we just got out, hands on our heads. I threw my satchel with grenades on the ground. We were holding up Wolf Colas. And what happened was, I guess what we heard was we were saying, we have Wolf Cola, and people who had nods on the checkpoint saw that we were holding up cans of Coke. And I guess they relayed back to their command that we had Coke, and their command thought that we had like
Drugs.
So
oh,
That's funny.
yeah. So
Oh,
they
man.
didn't want that. So perhaps if somebody with nods was a little more specific on the checkpoint end, we might have the whole weekend could have gone totally differently. But who knows?
yeah, but that's the thing is those possibilities totally exist. So
And similarly, like, what if we went up to the NATO checkpoint Saturday, an hour later, and that one guy wasn't in charge? What if it was somebody really friendly, and we just got to, what if we sold to NATO if we went an hour later and somebody friendly was in charge of the checkpoint?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been a totally different event had, like, if one or two things had been different, it could have been a totally different event.
and
That's
that's
probably
the
why.
thing with any of these games, like individual players have an incredible amount of power. Now that we're talking about this,
You can just go shoot the mayor if you want to and just completely skew the weekend.
yeah, I mean, ISIS kidnapped the mayor.
Yeah, and we shot at them for it, but
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like individual players have an incredible amount of power over how the weekend
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, for
Technically, at any point in time, any of us could have shot the NATO CO while he was in the trial.
oh yeah, and we didn't because we're good people. But
Yeah, but what would that have done? Like
Oh.
I had my red dot on him, like while I was up above him holding security. I'm like,
so did
part
I.
of me was like,
So
what
did
would
I.
happen? What
So did
would
I.
happen if I did
My
this
buddy
right
Paul,
now?
who was ground side with the RPK, said he thought about it pretty heavily too. I had my AK on him for a little bit just because I was I don't know, I felt a little antsy, but
Well, then you had the British guys, Steve. You saw this, like the British guys who during the firefight on Sunday they got into plain clothes.
Yeah, they got into plainclothes, and the hotel where ISIS was holed up for most of the weekend before we kicked them out and they dissolved. So we had a bunch of civilians, and I think a couple of Rust 4 guys were up on the roof, just kind of holding it. Well, the British guys, they changed into plainclothes, and they made their way into the building. No one stopped them, no one questioned them, nothing. They made their way all the way up to the top of the roof and just slaughtered everybody up there.
And that
Once
was
they
just
did
a
that-
really creative decision that they had the freedom to make.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember you talking about that. I never heard about that, and I was like, dude, that is something that I want to do at the next Insurgency event. I want something like crazy fucking bullshit to happen like that. That would be dope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it was pretty dope when they did that.
And then everyone died.
Yeah. Yeah, a bunch of Rust 4 guys came up. It's like, oh, crap, NATO's got this building. All right, let's go take it back. So they went up, and they kind of got slaughtered in the stairwell, which was to be expected because there was only one way onto the roof. But a couple of the guys did manage to make it through, and it's just another massive firefight, and everyone just died up on that roof.
Yeah,
It was
didn't the
great.
last British guy and the last Russian guy kill each other?
Yeah, they did. They both poked their heads around the corner. They both brought the rifles up at the same time and shot each other at the same time, and it was it was nuts. I wish I had a camera and was recording it.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was-
this is the kind of event where if you've thought about doing GoPro for an event, this is the kind of place to do it. Like gunfights and all that, like you see that all over YouTube. going to an Insurgency event like this and just recording the interactions with people, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
I would have brought a camera.
Can we talk about the homeless dudes?
Oh.
Yeah.
We'll pull up on fights.
I'm just gonna say the ability of
Before Connor starts, this
okay.
just shows you how creative people can get with what their role in the city is. These 4 people drove from Canada to act like bums for the city. They brought a shopping cart. They put signs on it that were like misspelled and like whatnot, and they just like behaved really strangely. It was so funny and awesome at the same time.
Yeah, it was great. I loved those guys. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
All right, go ahead, Connor.
Oh no, I'm just saying the ability of some of these people to get into and stay in character was just unbelievable. Like, oh my goodness, just the homeless people just to start. I mean, they were walking around like burping in people's faces. They had like shit stains on their pants, and their clothes were all ripped up, and like really weird facial hair going on. And
One dude made a homemade pair of juicy pants.
a homemade pair of juicy pants. There was one of them had a wife beater with like a stab mark in it, and he's like, "Did you spill something on your shirt?" And he's like, "No, it belongs to someone else." And there's like an obvious stab mark. In
Yeah.
it was just, like the ability of people to get into and stay in character. The homeless people, I think, top the list of that. But
Oh
there
yeah,
were so many other people that just stayed in character. I think we did an okay job of that too. But wow, just people really, I don't know, just were able to do so much with this.
Yeah, and I was in love with that about the format. I think that it's gonna be hard to go back to playing regular MilSim West.
No, it absolutely is.
you know what's gonna be really hard to do? Not want to blank fire at every other airsoft event that I do.
Yeah, you guys did blank fire, and you'd never done blank fire before.
Yep.
No, that's one of the reasons why I have this kind of sitting in the background. I decided that as a civilian, I wouldn't necessarily like. A lot of the civilians obviously had AKs. So what Steve and I decided to do is that there are a lot of countries in the world where civilians are not necessarily allowed to own current military rifles. So Steve brought his M44 Mosin Nagant carbine, and I brought my Springfield Armory M1 Garand, and we just shot blanks. And so I've got a little sample right here. So these are 3-6 blanks on a clip, and Steve they do make Mosin Nagant blanks, 7.62 by 54 blanks.
And a massive shovel-looking blank fire adapter.
They do make a very conspicuous blank fire adapter, which Steve and I are going to sit down and talk about running blank fire at MilSim West.
Yeah, so that'll be its own
That'll be
video.
a whole separate video, but honestly, like the atmosphere that it creates is so unique.
Especially, I think, at an Insurgency game where so many of the firefights start with blanks.
Yeah.
Or even if they don't start with blanks, they escalate very quickly because of blanks.
Yeah,
Well,
because
and
that
they
kind of
also-
signals to
And they let
everyone.
everybody else know that a firefight's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that we were talking earlier about how on Saturday night the NATO CP was like assaulted by a bunch of civilians. You know, a lot of my squad had nods, and they even had a thermal scope, so they knew some shit was about to go down. So everybody's like, "All right, get ready, do this, yeah." And I think it even started out with the checkpoint getting attacked first. And it's like, "Oh man, the checkpoint's under attack." And still like, "Oh yeah." But then a couple of dudes started popping off at the blank fire. It's like, "Oh shit, let's go."
Yeah.
That is the biggest indicator. It's like, okay, some shit's going down. We need to let's do some, we got to get in this.
Yeah, it creates such an amazing atmosphere. It lets people know that you're there. And I'm sorry, I mean, you guys can talk about this in your separate video, but it was just really, really cool. And it was also the first time that I've been with blank fire guys in my squad too, and it was just such an interesting experience.
Like I'm thinking about even the next MilSim West event that I'm planning on going to. I'm hopefully going to be able to go to the next Saratov one, which I think I might. I'm planning on going NATO for that. I think I might get a blank fire adapter for my M4, my real AR-15, and like grab a bunch of mags, grab a bunch of blanks, and roll with that. Just because how much fun it is. Like even though, like if you look at the rules and everything like that, the hit calling for blanks is optional, and at the very least you should be reacting by taking cover and things like that. To me, like I don't go to airsoft events to say, oh yeah, I got 57 kills. No, I do that because I have a good time, like just shooting my gun
and making loud noises.
Making loud noises and catching clips in midair.
Yeah. All right.
Megan says that was fucking amazing, by the way. I saw it.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Overnight fame, it feels like.
Yeah. All right.
Garrett, quit your day job. You're Instagram famous now.
Yeah.
Went from 100 followers on Instagram to 400 in like 24 hours.
Jesus.
Well, I think I go to these games again, not for kills or anything, but I think I go to them because it's amazing to feel like you're a part of something so giant, like taking on that police station at night, or just being a part of huge raids. It's amazing to feel like you're a part of like a giant citywide firefight, and blanks really, really add to that.
Do we want to?
We should really wrap this up. We're on like an hour and a half, but all right. So any final we've rambled on a lot. The TLDR I think is like even the worst Insurgency experience arguably is still like one of the best airsoft experiences. Would you agree with that, Trenton?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, this is definitely, I have to say, my worst MSW except for Balcar, but I won't talk about Balcar.
Well, you also left that one early. It got good eventually.
Yeah, no, I was disappointed that I left early, but this was still something because, it was my first Insurgency event, so I learned a lot after that, and I have some really good ideas for next time that I want to get together with some people that I know dedicated to do certain things. But it's still easily one of my better airsoft experiences, no matter what, because it's still a MilSim West. I'm sorry, but the bad MilSim West are good airsoft games.
Yeah, I'm on that same kind of page. This was my first Insurgency. It definitely won't be my last. I'm on board with the format. I love the things you can do with it, and I'm really excited to continue to try to see how much I can do within that format and how much we can come up with. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah. Oh man, it definitely won't be our last. We have so many ideas that we can just push forward. Like we were saying earlier, the creative freedom that you're granted is just unprecedented and unreal in the airsoft world. And I think we just have so many of those ideas that we want to try to push and, work with.
We've got ideas for years worth of Insurgencies.
Oh man, yeah. We're going to have to double up. We're going to have to do 2 or 3 ideas per game at this point.
I was just going to say, we may have to break off into different groups just to be able to do all these different ideas.
More than likely, yeah. But like I'm saying, I just think the ability for you to do whatever you want is unreal, and it was such a unique, obviously unique and incredible experience that it won't be my last. So
nice. Garrett, any closing remarks?
Even just the sitting around and waiting for stuff to happen, just exploring the fake city that literally pops up for the weekend is really fascinating to me. Everyone walks around, everyone knows everybody's armed. It's kind of, to me, this is almost like a modern day Wild West town. Yeah. Everybody's armed. Everybody knows that bad stuff's going to happen. Nobody knows when it's going to happen. So you try to live your fake life as best you can in that period of time. So honestly, the best parts of the game were like kind of stressful for me because at some points, Wolf Security got hired to do security jobs. And Mike Bolin, the guy who was in charge of Wolf Security, is like, hey, we need to make sure we have so many guys doing this job, or else it's going to put us in the bad light with the mayor and could make trouble for us later. So we need to make sure we do that. And we're like, oh crap, we got to make sure we do this right. We're in the public eye type of thing. And it was just really fascinating to, like, even when you're waiting around for stuff to happen, just that tension that exists and is present in this type of format. Love it. Definitely want to do it again, even if it's in a less combat oriented role.
And another thing to add to that too would be that there was like no real downtime. There was no time where we're just sitting around, because if there was downtime and shit wasn't popping off, we were out selling cola or exploring the city. We were never bored, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
What about you, Steve? Any closing thoughts?
I would say that the Insurgency format's pretty great. It's 11 out of 10. I would absolutely do the next one. That hits the East Coast at least, because I know MilSim West, they do games all over the country. But yeah, I mean, everyone's hit on a bunch of the major points. There's a lot of freedom that you can do whatever you want with, so long as you come up with a character and a background and a story. It's just like an RPG game, essentially, but it's in real life and you can carry guns.
Dope. Yeah. So I think those are kind of our takeaways from the Chechen Collapse. Great game, a lot of freedom, totally different from anything else that you are going to experience if you go into it with the right mindset. And
go into it with an open mind that you don't have to go and shoot people.
But you can.
You definitely can, and you definitely will. But going in with a different mindset of less about the gunfight and more about being a character in a game, you're going to have a lot more fun.
Well, yeah, and trust me, you will get those gunfights, but like when you're not having them, just enjoy being in the game and interacting with people.
Yeah, like there were nightclubs. The mayor invited us to go play poker with him Saturday night.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I want you guys to have a good time. You've been doing real good with the security thing.
Yeah. And you will get the gunfights. Like, you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will still get those. But
Like, I just walk up and down the street just to, like, have people interact with me.
Yeah.
Even though I might not necessarily interact with them back and not know how to react with them, just them reacting to me was enjoyable.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are our thoughts on MilSim West's Insurgency format as presented in the Chechen Collapse. Definitely give it a shot if you haven't. I think all of us came away with a glowing recommendation and a really great experience. So anyway, hopefully this video or podcast or whatever you want to call this, hopefully this was educational and informative and entertaining. Hopefully you enjoyed our thoughts on this, and we will catch you all in the next one. Peace. Everyone say goodbye.
see ya.
Bye, everybody.
Come back for the next video.
Thank you for watching this video from Gun Gamers. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. Check the description below if you'd like to buy a t-shirt or a patch, and use the coupon code JUDY10 for 10% off of your next order at Amped Airsoft. Thank you again for watching, and praise Judy.